I married a chocoholic, and to keep the love fires burning today, I am gonna make my husband Lad chocolate cobbler. It's a classic old recipe. It is out of this world incredible. And I started with sugar and unsweetened cocoa powder, and I'm adding some self-rising flour. Now I'll stir the dry ingredients together, and then some buttermilk and vanilla. Now I'll stir just for a sec. Okay, that's mixed together. So I have an important thing to grab out of the oven. Oh my. My favorite ingredient in the world, butter, a whole pan of it. So I've got this chocolatey batter that I mixed together. The butter is not only melted, it's absolutely sizzling and almost a little golden brown. So I'm gonna use this measuring cup to just drop random scoops right on top of this butter. All right, I wanna get all of this batter. And you don't have to follow any pattern when you drop it into the pan because it's all just gonna bubble up and bake together. So a few more things to sprinkle over. I have some chocolate chunks, and they just go on the butter, on the batter, wherever you want to drop it. Just make sure it's kind of an even layer. And then, don't judge me, a bunch of sugar. This is going to kind of help create a crispy, crunchy little sugary vibe. Some more unsweetened cocoa. I got to cover up all evidence of that sugar layer. I can't even bear to look at it. And then here's where it all starts to make sense. So I have a little saucepan of boiling water, and I'm just gonna slowly pour it over the contents of this baking dish. I can hear you doubting me. I can hear your skepticism through the TV. You have to trust me on this. This dessert, I don't know how it works. I don't know the science behind it, the chemistry behind it. I just know that I am 100% behind it. Now here's the important part. You don't even want to stir it because it'll totally mess up the texture of the baked dessert. So this is going to go into the oven for 40 minutes at 350 degrees, and then I'll show you what we've got. All right, here is the chocolate cobbler. Look at the magic that happened in the oven. Now I'm gonna take this down to our house, meet Lad, and we'll show you together what this dessert is all about. All right, Mr. Drummond, would you like a chocolate dessert?
You bet.
This is chocolate cobbler, but it's kind of like chocolate cake.
Chocolate cobbler.
Look at all that gooiness under there.
Wow.
Looks good, right?
Does look good with
But-
ice cream, right?
With ice cream. How'd you
Perfect.
know?
Perfect.
In the 26 years we've been married, have I ever not had ice cream when you've wanted it? Actually, yes.
Yeah.
Plenty of times,
Yes,
which is
a lot
why
of
you
times.
asked.
When I was at the farm stand and I saw all these gorgeous pears and apples, I thought, I've definitely got to make a pear and apple crisp for my barn warming. So I've got 2 pounds of Cocoon apples. I've peeled them and diced them. And I've got 2 pounds of Bosc pears. You can really choose any kind of apples that are firm and crisp. And you want pears that are firm also, but also sort of juicy. You can see when I peel them, they're just delicious. So I peel them, and then I'm going to cut them in 3/4 inch dice. Take the cores out. It's a little bit of a messy job, but worth it. Okay, so that's 2 pounds of apples and 2 pounds of pears. And I'm gonna add cranberries, 3/4 cup of cranberries. They're dried cranberries, and I think they're really sort of autumnal and delicious in this. Now to give it lots of flavor, I'm gonna put in lemon zest and orange zest. About a teaspoon of lemon zest. Teaspoon of orange zest. I like to mix them because one's a little sweeter, one's a little tartar, and this way neither of them really overwhelm the pear flavor. And then some juice. You always want a little juice to mix with the flour and sugar, so it gives gives a nice sort of sauce when it's cooking. So about 2 teaspoons of orange juice, about 2 teaspoons of lemon juice. Okay. Half a cup of sugar, 1/4 cup of flour. That's just gonna sort of create that little, you know, that delicious goop in the middle. So when the juices of the pears and apples come out, it'll make a wonderful sauce for it. Okay, now some classic apple pie flavorings. A teaspoon of cinnamon, half a teaspoon of nutmeg. So all of these enhance the pears and the apples, but none of them really overwhelm it. Just to bring out all that sort of gorgeous pear and appleness. Okay, so I think I'm gonna fill the ramekins. So I have 12 small ramekins. They're each an individual crisp. I think this is gonna be just delicious. I wanna fill them each a little high, because when they bake, you know, they sort of go down. So it's about a cup in each one. I really do love that when people arrive, the smell of the pear and apple crisp will be in the air. It's kind of like arriving home and having mom having made an apple pie for you. There's nothing more homey than that. And now for the oatmeal crumble topping. Okay, 1½ cups of flour, 3/4 cup of light brown sugar, and 3/4 cup of granulated sugar. Okay, half a teaspoon of salt. Salt's really important when you bake, really brings out the flavor. And 1 cup of oatmeal. Has great crunch and flavor. Half a pound of butter. I'm just gonna dice it and then mix it into the topping. Okay, and then I'm just gonna blend it all together. So you wanna let this go until it's like in big crumbles, which is right now. It's great. You can smell the cinnamon and nutmeg. Wonderful. Okay, so I'm just gonna pile this on each of the ramekins. Just big crumbles on the top of each one. And how good does that look? There's something about having individual ones. It's like kids having their own cupcake for their birthday party. A little more special. So I'm gonna put these in the fridge, and then later before the party, I'm gonna bake them 350 degrees for about 45 to 50 minutes until the top is browned and the juice and the fruit is all bubbly. Will you take a crisp and I'll get you a spoon?
You know, it's very good.
So I'm making a grilled peach crumble a la mode. But before I put the peaches on the grill, I gotta make the crumble. And to make the crumble, I have to cut up 1 stick of butter into cubes. You gotta have cold butter because you need that good chunks of crumbles to go on top of those grilled peaches. I'm going to use vanilla bean in my crumble. If you can't get your hand on a vanilla bean, you can always use vanilla extract. Right, I'm gonna reserve the other half of my vanilla bean because I'm gonna make a vanilla oil when the peaches go on the grill. I always like a crumble with a nut. Nuts just add that extra bit of texture. And I'm in the South, of course, we gotta use pecans. If you say pecans around me, I will turn a deaf ear to you. A half a cup of rolled oats, 3 tablespoons of light brown sugar, a half a cup of white flour. The flour just acts as a binding agent, and a heavy pinch of salt. I'm gonna add a half a pinch of cinnamon. It's gonna complement that vanilla bean that I put in here, and it's just gonna give it that classic crumble taste. You don't want to crumble the butter too much because we need it to still have some of that substance so we can get those big chunks. It looks good to me. And just spread it all over the baking sheet. That is what it's supposed to look like. This is why I use the cold butter, to get these nice big pieces of crumble. Alrighty, my oven is preheated to 400 degrees. I'm gonna bake it for 15 to 20 minutes. I think my crumble is done. Ooh, Look at that. I could just eat it like how it is. All right, I'm gonna take it outside and get these bad boys on my peaches. I'm assembling my grilled peaches. Simple little coating. A little bit of olive oil, a little vanilla bean, and just brush it. That's it.
Hey, sis.
Don't you hey sis me, you're late.
Well, you know how I go. Sweets before meats. How you doing?
Oh, sweet before meats, that's so cute.
What we got for dessert?
Peaches.
Oh,
Got
okay.
a little bit of ice cream.
Yeah.
You know, got a little crumble. Gonna place this on the grill. Face down, teach you a thing or two.
You got some olive oil in there? Is that
Got a
what
little
that is?
olive oil, a little bit of vanilla bean, you
Nice.
know. I'm just gonna grill this, you know,
Okay.
until it gets those nice little char and some grill lines on there. About 3 minutes. These are done. I love using peaches, especially peaches that are in season. They're sweet, they're juicy, they're at the peak of their freshness.
That looks good.
All right.
Top it with some vanilla ice cream, a little crumble. Watch this, watch that action.
Nice. All in.
This is really good, sis.
So good.
Now, I got some frozen peaches that have, you know, kind of thawed out a little bit. I'm getting these into the mix here. And what I'm gonna do is hit them with a little brown sugar and some regular white sugar. So look at those. Let's get a little bit of regular sugar in, about a 1/4 cup. And we'll get a little brown sugar in. So you get some of that nice kind of rich, deep molasses flavor. There we go. And a little bit of flour to kind of bind it together a bit. We're also gonna be hitting some cornstarch in there. The flour kind of gets a little thick and a little opaque where the cornstarch kind of runs a little bit more clear. So get a little flour, and get a little lemon juice, and get some water in there too. So a little lemon juice goes down. Get a little water in here. Spoon, and where's my cornstarch? Okay, there we go. Kind of mix that up a little bit. Make it not quite a slurry, because that's not a ton of cornstarch. All right, now before I mix that in, I'm gonna get a little cinnamon down. There we go. Okay, so take this, kind of pour it around. Now this is gonna be the base of it. We got sugar, we got flour. This all right here could be made, we could be making peach pie for all I know. So he's gonna get poured in here. First things first, let's get in a little bit of oats. Maybe 3/4 cup. We'll get in some flour. There we go. Okay. We'll get in some brown sugar. Again, kind of the same, you know, some of the same sweeteners that we had on the mix with the peaches. A little bit of both. And a little bit of white sugar. Same thing, about a 1/4 cup on that. I was dragging a bit there. Okay, gonna give a little pinch of salt into this piece. There we go. A little bit of cinnamon hiding there. You see, when I bake at home, I mean, I get everything out that I own. Okay, a little bit of cinnamon going downtown. Here we are. And then here's the kicker, a little fresh nutmeg. Get that. Got a zester, a little microplane here. And this, especially the fresh nutmeg, really makes it work. About a 1/4 teaspoon on that. There we are. All right. Now we get in some almonds. Toasting these would also be a nice little move to make. There we go. And we're gonna hit it with some cranberries. You know what, I'm kind of looking at this. I'm looking at the size of the dish. I'm gonna up my oats just a little bit. Just give a little bit more, and I'm just gonna hit a touch more flour in there too. Because depending on the size pan, when you're using a smaller dish, you don't have as much surface area to cover. I'm just gonna hit a little bit more in there. Now, here comes the key. I gotta de-bling for this. This is the key. Having a little room temperature butter that's been softened, and we're gonna kind of mix this in here. I'll just kind of break it up a little bit. Now we're gonna work this into here. Now, what it's gonna do? Well, it's gonna work as a little bit of a binder, but it's also gonna kind of melt and help crisp things up. All right, here we go. Go down with some of this. All right. Okay, here we go, into the oven. It's at 450. I'm just gonna pop it in there right now at the 450. It's smoking hot, but what I'm gonna do is drop it down to 350. It'll still have some of that residual temperature. Now check this out. The peaches are cooked, kind of make a nice caramel sauce around it, and I got some crunchy topping, but the topping that's down into the peaches is a little bit soggy. So now that I want the crunch, I want extra crunch, I'm gonna take the rest of the crunchy topping and put it on top. This will sit on the existing crunchy topping, and I'll have lots of extra crunchy topping. Okay, that goes back in, a few more minutes, crunch that top up. Peaches tossed with cinnamon and sugar, then baked under a comfy blanket of oats, slivered almonds, dried cranberries, a little brown sugar. Oh, ain't she a peach?
Chocolate chunk cherry cobbler, which has a saucy tart cherry filling and a big buttery cakey topping that channels some major chocolate chip cookie energy. It's so good. To get started on the filling, I'll make a slurry, which will help thicken it up so that it's saucy and not too liquidy. And I'm using the juices from my thawed cherries. I only want about 1/3 of a cup, so I'll eyeball that into my big bowl here. I'll whisk in 1 tablespoon of cornstarch. I'll fold in my cherries, I've got 4 cups of them, and sweeten with 1/2 cup of sugar, which will be a nice balance to the tart cherries. Brighten this up with the zest of 1/2 lemon. I love a cobbler. And 2 tablespoons of the lemon juice. About the juice of 1/2 a juicy lemon. A teensy splash of almond extract enhances the natural flavor of cherries, and a good pinch of salt to bring out all these flavors. I'll combine this. Okay, that's it. Here's my pie plate. It's buttered, and I've got it on a sheet pan just to catch any drips of this juicy filling that could overflow. I'll pour this right in. So for the topping now, I'll get that going with 2 cups of all-purpose flour, a 1/4 cup each of granulated sugar and brown sugar, and a tablespoon of baking powder, which will help this get super puffy, and a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. I'll combine this. I'll grab my cold ingredients. I've got a stick of cold cubed butter and 1/2 cup of cold heavy cream. I'll incorporate this butter until it's roughly the size of peas, but a few bigger bits are totally okay. Trying to work quickly so that the butter stays cold because that will yield more of a fluffy cake-like texture. Okay, this looks good. I'll toss in my chocolate now. This is 6 ounces of semi-sweet chocolate that I've coarsely chopped. I'll reserve a little bit of it to sprinkle on top. And then I'll bring this together into a dough with my cold heavy cream. I'll add an egg and some vanilla. Beat it up. And pour it right in. And fold it together. It's pretty crumbly. It'll be most efficient to get in here with my hands to bring this dough together. I want to make sure that all the floury bits are incorporated. I want to keep it pretty shaggy. I don't want to overmix this and develop that gluten to get that gummy texture. I'll scoop it into big or rustic balls on top of this. It won't fully cover the filling at this point, but as it bakes, it'll expand and get fluffy. So I'll get 8 scoops around the perimeter and 1 scoop in the center. It's making me happy already. That's looking great. I'll poke in my remaining chocolate. Cobblers have got to have a crunchy top, so I'll sprinkle this with some more granulated sugar too. It'll help the top brown, give you that textural experience, and of course provide more sweetness. This looks great already. I'll stick it in the oven at 375 degrees for 40 minutes, and then tent it with foil and let it go for another 10 minutes until the filling is bubbly and the topping is fully cooked. I think I hear those cherries bubbling. The suspense is real. Hubba hubba. I love seeing all the chocolate chunks on top. I'll be serving this with vanilla ice cream later, but I'm sneaking a taste. All the way to the bottom to get the layers. Oh yeah.
I'm a big believer in having a few recipes you can make in different variations all year round. So I'm going to teach my friend Frank, are you paying attention?
Yes, ma'am.
How to make fruit crumbles. You can make apple crumble in the winter, and I'm going to make peach and blueberry crumble in the summer. How's that
good.
sound?
Sounds great.
Okay, so first for the topping.
Okay.
First you need butter.
Why did I know that was number 1?
So I'm going to take 1/4 pound of unsalted butter. It has to be really cold.
Okay.
And I'm going to dice it up.
I'm Something tells me you've done this before.
Just a few. Except if every contestant, the instruction would say, dice 36 pounds of butter. Okay, next thing is a cup of flour.
Okay.
Are you writing things down?
I'm writing everything down.
Okay, good.
Don't worry.
Just checking. 1 cup of flour,
Got it.
1/3 of a cup of sugar,
Okay.
1/4 of a cup of brown sugar, light brown sugar.
Why do you use 2 types of sugar?
Brown sugar has a little bit of molasses in it. It has a sort of nice depth of flavor. And you want it lightly packed, not like that.
Okay.
Just lightly packed. Put it in. 1/4 of a teaspoon of salt. And the last thing is cinnamon. About a 1/4 of a teaspoon of cinnamon.
I'm surprised you put cinnamon in this.
I don't know, it needs a little spice, doesn't it? It's sort of like apple pie spices.
If you say so.
Okay, just mix that up. And just add the butter. And so I'm gonna mix it until the butter is like the size of peas.
Peas, okay.
That should be about right. So then, when it's still like this, then you just press it between your fingers and it really mixes it together.
Okay.
It's good and messy.
Good and messy.
Perfect, so you just want it so it's big crumbles like that, and then it's gonna bake really nicely. Okay, so blueberries and peaches. 1 for you.
Great.
1 for me.
Great.
And I'll show you how I put the fruit together.
Great.
I started by poaching 2 pounds of fresh, ripe peaches in boiling water just for about a minute. This is a really fast way to get the skins off. Then I fished them out and put them in ice cold water just to stop the cooking. Then peeling them is really easy. The skins just slip off. Then I slice them in thick wedges, about 8 wedges per peach, depending on how big they are. Sprinkled over 2 teaspoons of fresh lemon zest, 2 tablespoons of freshly squeezed lemon juice, some granulated sugar, about a 1/2 cup depending on how sweet the peaches are, and 1/4 cup of all-purpose flour. This makes a little bit of a sauce when they cook. Then gently mix in all the fresh blueberries, the peaches, and put them in all of the ramekins. Okay, time to do the crumble.
Okay. So how thick do you make that? Is it
Just
like a 1/2 inch or just covers the fruit?
Covers
or-
the fruit, yeah, that's a good one.
And you don't pat
Covers
it
the fruit.
down or?
No, because you want it to sort of brown when it's crumbly. If it's patted down, it won't have like edges.
Okay.
And actually, I do it on parchment paper on a sheet pan, not because you need the parchment paper, because when it bubbles over, you don't have to wash the pan.
Yeah, that's as good.
Right?
This
You can
is
just throw it
important.
away.
Yes.
Okay, just enough on each one. These are going to go into the oven, 350 degrees,
Okay.
for about 40 to 45 minutes, until they're nice and brown and crumbly. But you know, the good news about this is they last in the refrigerator unbaked.
Oh, good.
So how about if I just bake off 2 for you and me?
That sounds great.
And then we'll have 4 for another time.
Okay.
Okay, into the oven. I'll be right back.
Can't wait. Wow.
Peach and blueberry crumble. That looks pretty good, doesn't it?
Looks delicious.
Okay, you need a little vanilla ice cream on it.
Can only make it better.
I love the way the blueberries drips out the side. Okay, gentlemen, start your spoons.
Thank you.
So this looks pretty good, doesn't it?
Wow. That's delicious.
I love it. It's crumbly and sweet, and its texture's good.
It's awesome.
It's awesome. Good.
So what are you making next?
Well, it's kind of a busy morning. I've been getting dinner ready for my father-in-law, Chuck, tonight. And Chuck, meanwhile, is over in Hominy working some cattle that he owns with his cousin Judy. He's got the whole gang over there. Now, I'm gonna make Chuck an apple crisp. He has a serious sweet tooth, and apple crisp is one of his all-time favorite desserts, and it's really easy to make. I've got a buttered 9 by 13 inch dish, and I'm just adding a whole bunch of apple slices. This looks like a ton, but trust me, they shrink up in the oven to almost nothing, so you've got to start with a big pile. I'm gonna make a mixture to sprinkle over the apples. It's a cup of sugar and 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon, along with a pinch of salt. And I'll stir this together. Now, because this is gonna be sprinkled over the apples, I'll just add a tablespoon of flour, and that will help thicken the apple mixture as it bakes in the oven. Okay, and then sprinkle this over the apples. Okay, now on top of that mixture, I'm gonna sprinkle just about a half a cup of water, and I'm sprinkling it just so it kind of goes over all of the cinnamon sugar mixture. And that's also gonna help the apples get nice and thick and saucy in the oven. Okay, now I'm gonna make the crisp topping for the apple crisp. And it also has flour, quite a bit, about a cup, and a cup of brown sugar. It's very easy to remember this crisp topping. And a cup of quick oats. Needs another pinch of salt. And then I'll add a 1/4 teaspoon each of baking powder and baking soda. Okay, I'm stirring this around, make sure everything is totally mixed together. And then what brings it together is half a stick of melted butter. And I'm gonna stir as I pour it in and just make sure it's evenly distributed. And pretty soon it'll come together in just sort of a moist, crumbly mixture. Okay, just keep stirring until you no longer see any of that dry flour. I'm just about there. Okay, and then this mixture gets sprinkled over the apples. Magical things happen in the oven. You want to just use your fingers to spread the crisp topping over all the apples. Make sure it's kind of even. And now it's ready to go into the oven. I'm going to bake it at 350 degrees for about 43 to 44 minutes until it's nice and golden and crisp on top. So now over to Lad, Chuck, and the rest of the gang. Everybody's busy today in one form or another. Oh, this crisp looks amazing. Look at how golden brown it is, and it's bubbly and wonderful.
You got that oven occupied? The slow cooker is a fabulous way to make your desserts. I am going to make a slow cooker cobbler, and I'm using black cherries. I love using cherries in cobblers because they're so meaty and juicy. So I have some black cherries that I've thawed. I've reserved the juice from the cherries because I want to make a nice syrupy sauce with that. And that's a half a cup of granulated sugar, a 1/4 cup of cornstarch, a half a teaspoon of cinnamon, a 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg. I'm gonna give it a whisk, then add 3/4 cup of the reserved cherry juice. I decided to make a cobbler because what's more southern than a cobbler? And I thought it would be better to use the slow cooker so I can focus on everything else that I need to make. So you got that oven occupied. The slow cooker is a fabulous way to make your desserts. And as this gets nice and hot, it's gonna turn into this beautiful cherry syrup. And I'll pour this back into the slow cooker with those thawed cherries. Mix that around. All right, gotta make my topping. And I decided to kind of lighten it up a bit. I'm using some reduced fat milk and a little less sugar than I normally use, but still great nonetheless. So for my dry ingredients, I'm using 1 1/4 cup of all-purpose flour, 1 1/2 teaspoons of baking powder. It's gonna be fluffy and airy. Half a cup of granulated sugar, a half a teaspoon of cinnamon, and a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Give it a whisk. All right, so I've mixed my dry. Now for my wet, 1 egg. And now I'm adding 2/3 cup of reduced fat milk. I have some melted butter. That's about 3 tablespoons of melted unsalted butter, and a little vanilla extract. Give it a whisk. Break up that egg yolk. And now I'm going to add my wet to my dry to make my batter. Alrighty, so I'm gonna add my batter to the top of this. Okay, so I'm gonna cover this and cook it for about 2.5 to 3 hours on low. And when it comes out and it's nice and warm, I am gonna serve this with a scoop of ice cream.
The apples are wonderful in the orchard. I'm gonna make an apple crisp with really good vanilla ice cream. It's 5 pounds of apples. It sounds like a lot, but they really cook down. And you want a big, high apple crisp. Okay, that's the apples, and now I'm just gonna flavor them. So I love to use citrus with apples. So I'm gonna use the zest and the juice of 1 orange and 1 lemon. So, lots of orange zest. You always want to zest the orange before you juice it, otherwise you won't be able to zest it. And some juice. And then 1 lemon, also the zest and the juice. I love the spice of lemon. And then the juice. Okay. Want it a little bit sweet, but not too sweet. Half a cup of sugar. A little bit of cinnamon. Not too much, because it can really overpower it. A little bit of nutmeg, because I love it. And then clean hands. Just toss it all together. I just want it piled really high. Okay, and you want to get all the juices in, because that's all going to bake into the apples. So for the topping, I want it to have lots of flavor and lots of crunch. So this is what I'm going to do. Take 1.5 cups of flour. Three-quarters of a cup of granulated sugar. 3/4 of a cup of brown sugar. I think it gives it a really good flavor. Half a teaspoon of salt. A cup of oatmeal. I use really good sort of Irish quick cooking oats. Whatever you have around is fine. This is what gives it all its flavor. Half a pound of butter, 2 sticks of butter, diced and into the mixer. Okay. I'm really looking for the butter and the flour and the oatmeal to be crumbly together. This is good right now. You can do this with your hands, but it'll take much longer. So I'm just going to put it right on top. It's going to be really good together, especially with homemade vanilla ice cream. I know some people like chocolate and some people like cakes, but me, I like fruit crisps, and this is my favorite one, apple crisp. It's going to bake for 350 degrees for about an hour, and it's going to make the house smell wonderful, and we're going to have a fabulous dessert.
I'm making the epitome of sweet and fresh, a mixed berry crumble. In this bowl, I'm going to make my crumble. I'm going to use 2/3 cup of all-purpose flour, 1/3 cup of light brown sugar, and I'm also going to use 1/3 cup of granulated sugar. Light brown sugar has more of that molasses flavor, so you kind of get the best of both worlds. You get some molasses and you get tons of sweet. 2/3 cup of old-fashioned rolled oats. Mix it up. What I'm gonna do is just basically macerate some berries and put this crumble on top. So the crumble is kind of like a streusel. You know, it's like sugar, it's flour, it's butter, and it has a little texture because of these oats. All right, we use a pinch of salt, about 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon. Give it a mix. Now this is what makes a crumble, the butter. So this is very, very cold, unsalted butter. And what I like to do is just use my hands, almost like if you've ever made biscuits before. You break it down with your hands until the butter kind of turns into like a pea size. That's what makes a crumble a really great crumble, is when you get those, big chunks of like oats and sugar. Delicious. So I'm just breaking down my butter, making sure that my mixture is nice and moistened. All right. So I've got my ramekins here and my mixed berries. I have some strawberries, some blackberries, and raspberries. I'm gonna macerate these berries. That's basically just bringing out the natural sweetness with a little lemon juice. I'm also gonna use the zest of a lemon as well to really brighten up this dish. I'm going to use the juice of half of this lemon and 2/3 cup of granulated sugar. As it bakes, all of this juice is gonna come out of the berries, and it's gonna make that sauce. That's what I love about a crumble. I do love the berries, don't get me wrong, but that juice and that crumble, heaven. As the lemon juice kind of gets into those berries, as you see, that juice is starting to come out. That's what macerating is all about. So I'm adding 3 tablespoons of cornstarch to make that sauce. Mix it up with that cornstarch, the lemon juice, sugar, and berries. And I've sprayed each ramekin with some nonstick spray so the fruit does not stick to the bottom of it. All right, I'm going to evenly divide the berries into each of these ramekins. And if you don't have ramekins at home, you can use like a casserole dish or a cast iron skillet. I'm not filling this all the way to the top. What I like to do is come just to that first line, but if you want to see like that oozing out and that bubbly stuff on top, then you can fill it all the way up to the top. But I like to leave enough room for the crumble. All right, last but not least, that crumble. My favorite part of a mixed berry crumble or crumble of any sort is the crumble. Once that crumble hits that juice, woo-wee. And then it's nice and hot and you put a little ice cream on top. My gosh, oh yeah. I have my oven preheated to 350. I'm gonna bake these off for about an hour. All right, look at that. So pretty. I'm good to go. I need to get out of these clothes and get into my dress, and then it's party time.
Well, we're back from church, and I'm gonna stick a blackberry cobbler in the oven. Blackberry cobbler goes perfect with pot roast. It's just a good, wholesome, comfort food-filled meal, and blackberry cobbler is one of my favorites. I always laugh when I say I'm going to make cobbler because everyone has their own interpretation of cobbler. Some people think of cobbler as fruit in a dish and a pie crust over the top. That's one version. Some people think of cobbler as fruit on the bottom and a biscuit topping, which I think is the technical version of cobbler. But I like a cobbler that's a little bit more cakey and poofy, and I think it's the real thing. The others are just imposters. So in a bowl, I've got a cup of self-rising flour, a cup of sugar, and then a cup of whole milk, cuppa, that's easy to remember. And then half a stick of melted butter. And that's it, and that right there is why I love this cobbler so much. If you make a cobbler with a pie crust, you have to cut the shortening into the flour and go through all those steps. If you do it with the biscuit topping, you have to make the biscuit dough, roll it out, cut it. This is about a 30-second batter to throw together. And the sooner I can get cobbler in my mouth, the happier I am. So the batter just goes into a buttered baking dish, generously buttered, of course. We wouldn't want the cobbler sticking to the pan. And then I just rinse some blackberries, no need to dry them. And then I just sprinkle the blackberries over the batter. And this batter is going to poof and bake around the blackberries, and it turns into something not of this world. And at the end, I just sprinkle on 1/4 cup or so of sugar. And that gives the crust that nice little crispness and sweetness, of course. And I like to serve this cobbler with freshly whipped cream or ice cream or both. Now this needs to bake for about an hour on 350 degrees. Did somebody say cobbler?
Oh, yes.
I know that's your favorite, Daddy.
When I have adults and kids coming for dinner, I always want to do something that both of them love. I'm going to make a strawberry rhubarb crisp. So I've got 4 cups of strawberries, and I cut them in 1-inch dice, which means cutting most of them in half. 4 cups of rhubarb. I was really lucky to get really tender rhubarb. It's in season for such a short time, but when it is, I love it. 3/4 cup of sugar. And next I'm going to do 1½ teaspoons of grated orange zest, and then later I'm going to put the orange actually into it. One of the things I love about crisp is you can make any kind of crisp, and it's really seasonal. When apples are in, I make apple crisp. In the summer, I make peaches and blueberries or peaches and raspberries. It's a classic nursery dessert, but it's really delicious. Okay, so that's got to be at least 1½ teaspoons right into the mixture. And then to thicken it a little bit, I'm actually going to take the juice of the orange and some cornstarch, kind of like making a pie, just something to absorb all the juices, and so it thickens it a little bit. So this should be about 1/2 cup of freshly squeezed orange juice and a tablespoon of cornstarch. It's a good idea to dissolve it in advance so you don't get any lumps in the fruit. Lumps, not a good idea. Just gonna pour it right in and mix it all together. Just give it a big toss. It's really important to cut the fruit in sort of big chunks because you don't want to end up with jam for this. You want to end up with fruit crisp. So this is the crumble topping, which is sometimes called a crisp. 1 cup of flour. I use pretty much the same kind of topping for each one. It's just the perfect amount of crumble and sweetness, and it's a good foil for the fruit. 1/2 cup of brown sugar, 1/2 cup of white sugar, 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Even sweet things need salt. 1 cup of oatmeal. I just think it gives it a really nice crunch. Okay, give it a little stir. I love the texture of the crispy oatmeal against the sweet fruit. So next is butter. I need 12 tablespoons of butter. I'm just gonna dice it up and then mix it into the bowl. And just mix it in until the butter's like the size of peas. Okay, that should do it. So this is what it looks like in the bowl. It's just big crumbles. And all I have to do now is just put it on top of the fruit. Just distribute it evenly on the top. You don't really have to cover the entire thing, but I think there's enough of the crumble topping that you will. This dish is about 11 inches long, 8 inches wide, and about 2.5 inches deep. And it's perfect for this. 350 degrees for about an hour, and it's gonna be bubbly and juicy and crisp on the top. Okay, strawberry rhubarb crisp.
Look at
Whoa. Wow, how's that? It's really hot. And a little vanilla ice cream. Whoa.
You're gonna eat that all up?
And would
You're
Carter
lucky.
like some?
Yes, please. I'll eat his.
Is that good? Yeah.